Good afternoon. The theory I got was empowerment theory. So, what is the empowerment theory? It focuses on processes that individuals and groups can use to recognize patterns of inequality and injustices to take action to increase their own power. The history of empowerment theory. So, the word empowerment is a value orientation for working in the community and a theoretical model for understanding the process and consequences of efforts to exert control and influence over decisions that affect one's life, organizational functioning, and the quality of community life. In 1981, Julian Rappaport proposed that empowerment should be a primary focus of community psychology. So, community psychology goes beyond the individual focus. It integrates social, cultural, economic, political, environmental, and international influences to promote positive change, health, and empowerment at individual and systematic levels. Also, there are many origins and sources that can be traced back to empowerment theory. This theory can be traced back to many domains such as feminism, Freudian psychology, theology, the Black Power movement, and Gandhism. Julian also believed that empowerment is about assisting individuals to better understand their personal situations and to gain power and control. He was passionate about considering the rights, needs, and choices of individuals. And just like social workers, we're just as passionate about considering their rights, needs, and choices. Empowerment has to be made on multiple levels in order to address the powerlessness of individuals, groups, and communities. So now I have a video that better explains empowerment theory.
I'm Professor Alba Brown, and the course is Confronting Oppression and Injustice. I'm going to be talking about theories of empowerment today. Theories of empowerment are derived from a number of different sources, mainly sociology, economic and political theory, liberation theology, and social work. Theories of empowerment have several common features that exist within each of the theoretical perspectives. Social work began really as an individual intervention. It was meant to resolve the needs and or suffering of individuals and families. As social workers began to see that the challenges that were impacting individuals and families really were occurring on more communal or societal levels, social work began to see its role expand into social reform. So this is often where you see the systemic interventions and the reform background of social work. Empowerment is characterized by being both a process and a product. There is a process to become empowered, and there is a product of empowerment. And also, all theories of empowerment refer to power, which is defined as the ability to access and control resources and people. So a theoretical definition of empowerment is the process by which individuals and groups gain power to access resources and to control the circumstances of their lives. So why do we engage in empowerment in social work? The first is oppression exists in the world, systemic, interpersonal, and internal oppression. Empowerment is often a response to oppression. Because empowerment is both process and product, empowerment can be used to create and garner support for change from individuals and communities, and then empowerment can be translated into sustainable change. Also, empowerment aligns itself well with our postmodern context. a context in which we do not necessarily believe that the meta-narratives or the big stories that we've been told that were designed by a dominant mindset and dominant culture are necessarily true. Empowerment really respects the idea of self-determination, that each individual is able to determine how and where and why and how they want to live their lives. So it's important that empowerment is tied into that. Also, empowerment often refers to the ecological perspective of social work. This is loosely translated as the person and environment understanding. Social work as a profession understands the relationship or seeks to understand the relationship between individuals and their environment. This perspective often shapes the type of interventions that we design and the type of solutions that we put into place. And so empowerment really respects the notion of the person and environment as fundamental to the practice of empowerment. Empowerment also really relies on systems and the experience of the collective. And I talk about this because in our current context, community has really been redefined. Community used to reside only in neighborhoods or people that were geographically close to you. As technology continues to advance, we can find communities online, we can find communities that are global in nature, and we can find community not just by geographic boundaries, but by interest area, by identity, by age group, etc. And so empowerment really responds to the different kinds of communities that are formed in our current context. Also, empowerment is explicitly concerned with building on what already works. This to me is reflective of the strengths perspective that we try to employ in social work practice. Building on the things that are already strong are critical in empowerment. It is the epitome of not reinventing the wheel, but to excavate the things that are strong about individuals and communities and society and building upon those as a foundation as opposed to scrapping everything and starting over. And empowerment is heavily aligned with the values and the ethical imperative of social work. I've listed the social work values here because empowerment can be seen in all of those: in service, social justice, dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. There is a strong case for why it is appropriate to utilize empowerment in social work practice at the individual and at the societal level. So empowerment first entered social work literature in 1976 by a woman named Barbara Solomon. She was a practicing social worker and described empowerment as a process whereby the social worker engages in a set of activities with the client that aim to reduce the powerlessness that has been created by negative valuations based on membership in a stigmatized group. That last sentence may remind you of a theory that we've already visited in this course discussing oppression. Oppression essentially is the negative valuation targeted at a group. And so this process is, again, really a response to oppression. She continues on to say it involves identification of the power blocks that contribute to the problem, as well as the developmental and implementation of specific strategies aimed at either the reduction of the effects from indirect power blocks or the reduction of the operations of direct power blocks.
Here's the deal with SE.
So as you can see from the video, the empowerment theory, it mainly affects marginalized and oppressed individuals, groups, and communities. So who is affected by the empowerment theory? Women, members of the LGBTQIA plus community, individuals with disabilities, those living in poverty, etc. Those members are also known as marginalized members. So some challenges from the empowerment theory would be lack of access to basic needs, healthcare, education, And then you also have some blocks, which is direct blocks and indirect blocks. So your direct blocks are structures that stop people from achieving goals. Such as better employment, advanced or higher education, or safe housing. Indirect blocks, which are more of a challenge, refer to internalized oppression. They develop in indirect blocks. It develops thoughts that will limit your ability, or it will limit individuals' ability to achieve their goals. So an indirect block would be a little bit more difficult for a social worker to help an individual with. So some interventions that will help. You have micro level tools, and those tools consist of therapy, case management, and insight. So therapy, as we all know, uses techniques to emphasize people's strengths, helps them develop skills needed to comfort social and political difficulties, and offers alternatives to dysfunctional and self-defeating thoughts, patterns that can cultivate self-worth and empower people to overcome indirect power blocks, which is what we just talked about. Indirect power blocks are the blocks that are a little bit more challenging, where people basically get in their own way. You have case management, which empowers individuals to become their own advocates. Social workers can encourage clients to take an active part in identifying their needs and teach them how to register with the employment agency or find health services that can empower them to become their own advocates. Establishing this autonomy is key to social work, which strives to build strength and independence. And then the last micro-level tool will be Insight, which social workers mainly implement, and they deliver case management, which is what we just talked about, therapy or social programs, which empower clients to achieve their goals through a self-examination process in which clients evaluate how they can achieve their situations and solve their own problems. Also, with interventions, the empowerment theory in social work involves using intervention methods to guide and support individuals towards achieving a sense of control. So interventions continue. You have the macro level, which is on a more broader scale. So you have political advocacy, program development, and research projects. And as social workers, we use all of these micro levels. So your policy advocacy engages government agencies in efforts to change laws and policies that disproportionately impact marginalized or disadvantaged groups in negative ways. Program development can be used to educate the public about social issues and engage community members. This might involve working with community members in a program to revitalize a neighborhood, organize a school campaign, or canvass for a proposed law. Research projects. Also with program development, a social worker also develop something within a school, such as like a support group for students or something. Then you have research projects can identify factors that contribute to social inequalities or measure the effects of discrimination and other oppressive forces on specific populations, providing data that informs evidence-based practices. And lastly, the implications of social work. So as social workers, when we deal with a community or a group or individuals that need more empowerment, it's important for us to know the group's history of oppression. How did the oppression originate? How does this oppression manifest in the present? We also, as social workers, need to understand the group's strengths and resilience. How have the people adapted and coped with oppression? What has allowed the community to survive and succeed in face of stress and abuse they have encountered? And then lastly, we have to recognize the diversity within the group. How do elements such as race, class, gender, and sexual orientation complicate and change the impact of oppression on different members of the group? In what ways can these factors affect the way oppression plays out? And then I have my references. Thank you.